Welcome, Life Sciences, to another exciting life science lesson. What do we have in store today? If I'd say it's all about love, I'm not sure you'd understand what I mean, but we're looking at the human transport system. We're going to focus on the heart, right? That organ that we always talk about for love. So guys, what we're looking at now is we've looked at a series of mammalian tissue, right? We've looked at how water transports through a plant. And now we're going to look at how the human, all right, body needs to transport things around. And today we're going to focus a lot on this muscular structure that is called the heart. So our plan for the lesson today, all right, as I put a little thing here, I want you to, maybe while I'm talking, just keep doing this with your hand, right? And just see how tired your hand gets. Because remember, your heart has to beat all the time, right? It doesn't stop. So imagine while I'm talking, you take a tennis ball or something, and you just keep, right, just keep pushing. What's going to happen? You're probably going to have awesome biceps and awesome, but you can't tire, because if you tire and you stop, you're going to die. So the heart, we're going to look at something that needs to keep on, all right, keep on pumping all the time. What are we looking at today? All right, in our series today, we're going to look at the structure of the heart. And you're going to see there might be a little surprise of what we're going to do when we get to the heart. And the second thing we're going to look at is how does the heart beat? So we've got the structure, we've got to get things through it, and how does it simply contract and relax? As we do every time, guys, we've got a whole lot of new terminology that we're going to use. Please make sure that you are familiar with the terminology. Make sure you are familiar with the words that we use so that you are able to use them correctly. Remember, if you're not sure, go and have a look in your textbook, go and have a look in the notes, and make sure that you understand the right way in which we are going to use, right, these terms. Okay, the first thing we're going to start off is this whole concept, right, of what a surface to volume ratio is. And what do I mean by that? What I mean very simply is that some organisms are really, really small, okay? And then you get some organisms that are really, really large. Now what happens is small little organisms have a small surface to volume ratio, which means very simply is that a lot of their things are going to be very simple. But the larger something is, we're going to need more of it, and that actually means that we're going to need more complex, and I'm going to use the word here, systems. So if I'm looking at my transport system, if I'm looking at my transport, what am I actually looking at? Most important thing, there's others as well, is I want to get oxygen and carbon dioxide into and out of my body. Things that are really small, little organisms that are really small, like a really simple unicellular organism, what's going to happen? Oxygen can go in and carbon dioxide can go out. Simple diffusion. Now this person is me, all right? There I am, little stick figure. I am quite big, all right? I have got this layer of skin around me, and I also am very busy. So I'm going to need to have lots of oxygen. And unfortunately, oxygen can't come into around my skin, right? I need to actually have a serious system that's going to get the oxygen into my body and around it. So that's what we're talking about, that usually the bigger an organism gets and the more complex it is, we need to have special systems in place that can do things effectively. Now, as I said to you over here, this is a little amoeba. It's a single cell, and it's really small, and it doesn't need to have this transport system. It doesn't need to get things around because it's really, really simple, and it's really, really small, and it pretty much can do everything itself. However, the bigger we get, as I said, and the more complex we get, we are going to need to have a specific system. Now, I want you to have a look at two concepts that we're going to have when we look at a transport system. Now, over here, what we have is an insect. Now, if we have an insect, here is a little grasshopper. They scare me. I don't know why we put them on, but that's what we have over here. Now, what we're talking about, what is a circulatory system? What do you do when you circulate? You get around, okay? You get around. That's exactly when you circulate at a party or whatever, you're going from person to person. Now, what we have over here is when we talk about transport, what do we want to transport? As we said before, I want to transport carbon dioxide out of my body. I want to transport maybe oxygen into my body. What else do I need to transport? I might want to transport water, right? I might want to transport food. Now, all these things that I want to transport, I need to have a way in which they can transport. And if you have a look over here, this is what we call an open circulatory system. And it simply means that we have a little heart, a little pumping mechanism. Don't even really call it a heart, it's called an ostium. And all that it does is it just, if oxygen comes in, it just slowly pumps it up, and then all that the oxygen does is it just lines the whole body cavity over here. We don't actually have serious what we call blood vessels. When we look at the transport system, we're going to look at the heart, we're going to look at blood, and we're going to look at blood vessels. They're going to transport all of these things. Insects don't have that. However, the more organized, the more complex, right, an organism is, we need to be able to transport things to all the cells in the body. Okay, and as I said to you before, what do we need to transport? We need to get food to the different places, that's the nutrients. I need to get gases to and from, and most importantly as well, I need to get any kind of waste. So what we do over here, the more complex we have this, what is called a closed circulatory system. And what do you mean here by closed? I'm going to go over here. Look here, this goes out, it doesn't close, it's open. So everything just mixes together, it's like this big mixture. However, in a closed circulatory system, you're going to have a transport system where whatever it transports is going to be restricted. Let me use a blue over here, that will be better. It's restricted to a series of blood vessels. So here we're going to look, there's a heart, and that heart is going to pump whatever it needs to transport, but it's going to stay in these vessels. It's not going to open up. It's going to get where it needs to go, it's going to do its whole thing, and it's going to come back again in these blood vessels. And if at any time it goes out, our body has to do something about it. That's how we can bleed to death. Okay, what happens? You want to make sure that the blood stays in the blood vessels, because that is what we are going to use as a transport. Now, as I said to you, right, what we're going to have, what we're going to look at is the heart, the blood vessels, and a new system called the lymphatic system. But today we're just going to concentrate on the heart. Now, guys, what is the heart? Right, very simply, take your fist, right, that's the size of your heart, and you're going to put it here on your chest slightly to the left-hand side. Now, what it is we have got a thorax, part of the body, and that thorax has got two major things in it. It's got two lungs, and it's got a heart. Now, that heart over there fits into a space in between the lungs. That's our word, new word that you're going to learn, called the media sternum. Media, just slightly off center. Sternum is another word for the sternum. So it's just slightly to the side of the sternum. Now, where does the sternum come into place? Guys, our lungs and our heart are really important. So guess what we need? We need a protection. So we've got the structure called the rib cage, and the rib cage is made up of bones, and in between the bones are muscles, intercostal muscles, and as you can see, They're going to cover the heart, and they're going to cover the lungs, and they're going to be protected. This rib cage is also going to need to be right for the lungs to be able to breathe. So we're going to be protected by the structure called the rib cage. Now, if you have a look at the heart, we're going to, as I said, we might have a surprise for you. The heart doesn't, and the thing you need to understand about all the organs in the body, they don't just float around. They very often have this covering of connective tissue. And when you did mammalian tissue, it was areolar connective tissue. And I call it like the Boerewors layer. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you can't see it, but you know it's there. And that's exactly what the heart is. The heart has a very outer layer called the pericardium. And as I said, you will see just now in our surprise that you're going to see the pericardium very clearly. And it's in the sac. And why is it in the sac? Because the heart is going to beat. It's going to beat. It moves, right? And when it moves, you don't want it to friction. You don't want it to knock into anything. You want it to be in its own little place, and all that it does is it contracts and it relaxes. Okay, and that little cover just makes sure that when it does that, the movement is nice and smooth, and that it's protected and lubricated, because there's going to be a little bit of fluid. Can you see there? Right, we've got a little bit of fluid, and what's the fluid there? For lubrication. And what do we need lubrication for? Right, to protect it from friction, so that we don't have friction against the heart. We don't want to have that at all. Guys, when we look at the heart, right, we can see that the heart has an external. This is what it looks like on the outside. And what we're going to see is a whole lot of blood vessels. And we're often going to use the red and the blue. We use red to show, there we go, hang on a second, let me do that. Oxygenated, so full of oxygen. And we use the blue to show deoxygenated, right? And what we mean by deoxygenated, we mean filled with carbon dioxide. And then we're going to have a look at the inside of the heart. And we're going to see that the internal structure, that is the inside, is made up of chambers. We're going to have top chambers. They are going to be called the atrium, all right? And we're going to have the bottom chambers, which are going to be the ventricles. But you're going to have a little closer look to that just now. Okay, guys, it's time to have a short little break. We're going to be right back.